but we will be having only 2 for now to make the session as reasonable as for students to grasp the thing, whatever we will present. So there will be one is acute abdomen, surgical causes in pregnancy, that is TOG article, and another one will be polyhydramnios in singleton pregnancy. These 2 TOG articles will be presented. So in our this common lecture, we will present this surgical causes in of acute abdomen in pregnancy, and further with the second lecture and whatever remaining, whatever we can do, that will be continued in that what is our already course is going on. So in that group, it will be continued, second lecture. Munib?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Have you started the slideshow?
Yeah. For me, it is showing share. Not showing there, not coming there?
Yes, this is the screen is not covered.
Not coming again. Okay.
Click on the slideshow button.
1 minute.
No, it's coming, I think. You check your...
No, can you see the slide now?
Yes, yes, I can see.
There is slide. Okay, then still, because I haven't started this, still a presentation I haven't started, only one slide is there.
Okay.
Okay, so shall we start?
Yes.
Can I ask one question before starting the session?
Yes, my dear, please.
Is there this MRCG Part 2 exam will be conducted in Pakistan also?
I'm very sorry, my dear. I don't have that idea.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Munib will look into the matter. Munib will look into the details. If any updated thing, he will update you. Okay?
I'll answer you.
Okay, okay. Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, my dear.
Ma'am, please make this slideshow.
Fahmida?
Yes, my dear.
Dr. Fahmida, I am a little late, and when you start the class,
No, nothing, my dear. In the beginning, we said only what we are going to do today. We will talk about 2 TOG articles, which is one is your acute abdomen, surgical causes in pregnancy. That we will present here commonly, and another our further part of our presentation with today's lecture will be continued in another group, which is already separate, not exactly like separate group, but which is like paid group for MRCOG part 2. So the rest of the part will be continued there. But one complete TOG article will be presented here. Okay? In the very beginning, my humble request, please put off, mute your speakers, please. Okay, so we will start now, because again it will become then very long session. So
okay, we can start now.
Yeah, 19 participants are there. So I myself again, Dr. Fahmida, your friend, your mentor, and on your platform, which is MedHome, I welcome you all again with new refreshment, because most of you we were a bit away from you for some time due to certain circumstances and all. So we have started again, whatever little more activity we can continue in our group, it will be continued only. Okay, there are regular classes are going on in paid session, but here because of the time constraint and all, it was not very practically possible, but we will restart it again. So MedHome, as you all know, aim of MedHome to walk with you as a team, hand in hand, till you achieve your goal. Just give me 1 second. Baba, answer the phone and tell Mama is busy. Who is that one calling? Just see. Don't answer the phone, leave it. So our today's topic is one of the very important TOG article, which is surgical causes of acute abdominal pain in pregnancy. This is 2019 TOG article, as we say always in regard to the material and syllabus for MRCOG.
Dr. Fahmida, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is there any change in this group? Are we not following this group or something? I just started right now.
This group, this our MedHome group?
Yes, this paid
There
group, which we are for September attempt.
No change, my dear. Who is this?
I'm Dr. Sehrish.
Sehrish, my dear, Meri Jaan, there is no change. Only what we decided now, what we are covering, all whatever our promised and our schedule and all, whatever we are covering, little part we are presenting in common group. Rest will be continued in the same group only. Don't worry for that.
Okay.
Okay. So now this talk article will be presented where our both groups, this paid group and the one common group, which is already Medhome, very big group is there. That group, whoever wants to join from there, they can also join. Rest of the lecture, we will continue in that separate group as usual, as we do earlier. Okay. Okay, can I continue further?
Yes, ma'am, continue.
Tehrish, okay dear. So this is 2019 TOG article, and as we said earlier, repeatedly we are telling whenever you think about RCOG, MRCOG exam, green top guidelines, which is backbone for RCOG exam. After that we see NICE, and after that TOG. So TOG articles are very, very important. Always we say last 3 years, but try to cover 3 to 5 years. And certain TOG articles, which is like very, as if you will see in every exam, there will be some question from those TOG articles. So we are stressing more on those TOG articles to cover them. So this is one of those articles where is surgical causes of acute abdominal pain in pregnancy. Okay, incidence is always I try to highlight because very statistics is always the most important part of exam and all. So the incidence of acute abdomen during pregnancy is 1 in 500 to 600 pregnancies. Now, any general idea, whoever has idea one by one, don't talk all of you together, it will be mess and no one will be able to hear it. So one by one can tell me what comes to your brain when we talk about acute abdomen in pregnancy, in early pregnancy, in late pregnancy, obstetrical causes and non-obstetrical causes.
In obstetrical causes, urinary tract infection, common cause.
Okay, good, yes.
And gastroenteritis,
Mm-hmm.
obstetrical appendicitis.
Yes.
Topic pregnancy.
Yeah, if we segregate, if we try to differentiate between obstetric and non-obstetrical, it will be more easier not to miss anything. Ectopic pregnancy, very good.
Variant torsion.
Yes,
With
very
cyst.
good. Yeah, cyst with torsion, yes.
Abruption.
Abruption, yes, excellent, yes.
Preterm labor.
Yeah, preterm labor, when it is already complicated with abruption or something like that, it can be, yes. Okay, let us see now, one by one, what we are seeing. Now, the common thing is what? Abdominal pain and GI symptoms are relatively common complaints of pregnancy. So what it happens, whenever any patient, any woman, she presents with these things, it becomes a challenge to come to diagnosis, because usually gastric, as we said, gastritis, as we said, UTI and all. So these become, once if early pregnancy, if any patient presents with gastric pain, or usually we say, no, this is common in pregnancy to have gastric pain and GI symptoms, and also it becomes a diagnostic challenge, and to treatment also it becomes a dilemma. That's why it is very, very important to look into the detail of this thing and to find out that how we can make a systematic approach to the condition and to maximize the benefit to mother and baby and minimize morbidity and mortality to mother and baby. That is the main aim of this articles. It has made it simplified approach with certain key points. Surgical condition may be uncommon, but clinicians need to be alert to them as they can present differently in pregnancy. What those are, we can see. So as we said earlier now, that structured approach is very, very important to come to our diagnosis. How it will happen when we will try to have our vision a bit vast, open vision to have multiple differential diagnosis. That's why our beginning was what could be the possible reasons. So differential diagnosis and structured approach. How that structured approach and what differential diagnosis, we will see one by one. Consideration of these conditions allowing for either early diagnosis or exclusion, and it is important. Why I said it is important to optimize outcome for both, for mother and baby. So the conclusion from this slide, most of the GI symptoms are common symptoms of pregnancy. Some uncommon conditions may complicate maternal and baby's health. Why are we seeing in detail this topic? Because the structured approach is very, very important to come to the diagnosis or to exclude certain condition, and finally to optimize outcome for both mother and baby. Okay, so far.
Domestic violence.
Domestic violence, yes, yes, excellent. Domestic violence. Now, you see, approximately 3 maternal deaths per year in UK are attributed to intra-abdominal pathology. 3 maternal deaths per year for intra-abdominal pathology. Now, it needs, as we said, thorough evaluation. How to do that? With differential diagnosis. Differential diagnosis. Always try to keep a box open to see. So the important thing is structured approach, differential diagnosis, early senior surgeon input with expert obstetrician. Again, that is also wherever we suspect something, involve senior surgeon. So here, what we said, differential diagnosis, structured approach, early senior input, and expert obstetrician involvement. This is our differential diagnosis. So what we will do, we will try, we have divided in 2 parts, again 2 subdivisions, obstetrical causes, non-obstetrical causes, then early pregnancy and late pregnancy. Okay, so as we said, all these things in early pregnancy, obstetrical causes could be miscarriage, ectopic, that we said already, fibroids was said already, round ligament pain, and UTI also was said. There is acute retention of urine associated with retroversion of uterus. This is in early pregnancy, obstetrical causes. Non-obstetrical causes, most of the causes will be same here and there in early and late pregnancy. So in surgical, non-obstetrical surgical causes, appendicitis, that was said already, cholecystitis, pancreatitis, peptic ulcer, bowel obstruction, ureteric obstruction, and aneurysm rupture. Just imagine yourself like this tummy, it is as a box. How many quadrants it has?
9
quadrants.
9, excellent. Try to go to each quadrant and see what organ is there. So what you can suspect. If you go from the rightmost right iliac fossa, you will go to appendicitis. If you go to right hypochondrium, you will go to cholecystitis. When you come to your epigastric region, you will go to a peptic ulcer. When you go to the loin, again the right middle and the left middle quadrant, when you go, you will come to ureteric obstruction. When you come to left upper quadrant, you will come aneurysm, mostly splenic aneurysm. When you come down in the middle, you will come to bowel obstruction. So when you go like this systematically, you will not miss anything. Looks little bit simpler. Okay, so that is surgical causes when you go to quadrant wise. And if you relate it to pregnancy, when it is early pregnancy, what comes to your mind? Either she is miscarrying, either it is ectopic pregnancy. That is the one. Third thing comes retention of urine, or it is, as it is said, fibroid and round ligament pain. So this is our early pregnancy and obstetrical, non-obstetrical causes. Now let us see what happens in late pregnancy. Late pregnancy, already what we said, same as it is preterm labor, abruption, then uterine rupture. It is one of the most important thing again, where there is previous CS. Then acute fatty liver of pregnancy, preeclampsia, hemolysis, elevated liver enzymes, this syndrome where there will be severe epigastric and right hypochondriac pain. Chorioamnionitis, symphysis pubis dysfunction, fibroid red degeneration, early or late both, and false pains, which is Braxton Hicks, contractions. This is obstetrical thing. Non-obstetrical, which will come surgical things, it will be, what it will be there, that is pyelonephritis, IBD, ovarian cyst accidents, constipation, abuse, someone said, domestic violence, assault and all, then psychogenic pneumonia and other rare medical causes, that is myocardial infarction, diabetic ketoacidosis and porphyria. In all these things, there will be severe epigastric pain and all. So this is these list is of obstetrical, non-obstetrical, early pregnancy and late pregnancy causes. Okay. This is only 1 or 2 times once you revise, try to make it systematic approach. Nothing will be needed to by heart. By heart will not keep you anything. It will not help you memorize, and unless you just try to understand the concept. Once the concept is clear, things will become very easy. Okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, dear. Now what can be the red flag signs? What will make us alert that no, something is happening, which either we are missing or maybe diagnosis is still needed, detailed diagnosis? What can be the red flag signs?
History of nausea and vomiting
Mm-hmm.
or fever.
Mm-hmm.
History of
And-
fainting.
And,
Okay.
and pain abdomen, not responding to drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Or
History of hypertension.
Yeah. Now, when we go to the differential diagnosis, more than that, something to alert us is if there is repeated admissions are coming, patient is frequent. We have seen, we have admitted patient, we discharged her home, no, everything is okay, you go home. Again, she's coming back. Again, she's coming back, means something which is getting missed. Okay. Then the second thing, repeated doses of opiates given for analgesia without a cause for pain being established, means patient presents with pain. We are giving her, we did all the investigations, did not find anything, something that time, but her pain, need of pain management is getting increased, means something is happening. Something is happening. When need for pain management is increasing, means something is happening. And another thing, new onset anxiety and confusion being attributed to a psychiatric cause rather than underlying undiagnosed organic disease. These all has to be considered as a red flag signs. For dog articles, again, I will insist on one point, whatever given in boxes. That's why I did not change the box. I did not type it. Only the box I cut and I pasted. Why? Because many question comes mainly from the boxes. So try to concentrate on things what is given in boxes. Okay. So this, if it is given red flag signs, what are the red flag signs in acute abdomen? That you people have to remember those points. When there is repeated admissions, repeated doses of opiate analgesia is given without any cause for pain being established, and there is new onset anxiety and confusion which is attributed to her psychiatric cause. Okay, so these are red flag signs. Now, structured assessment algorithm. Now, any woman, she presented that she has severe pain and she is pregnant, maybe 24 weeks or 22 weeks. How you will start from the beginning? What will be your approach?
history, detailed history.
Very good. Detailed history. Excellent point. Yes. What else?
Then general examination, then systemic examination, obstetric examination.
Excellent.
Then
Very,
lab-
very good.
Then laboratory investigation.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Very good.
conclusion.
Excellent. Very good points. Now, first is detailed history. What we will ask, evaluating the presenting symptoms to refine the differential diagnosis with what symptoms she has presented in that, what pain, type of pain, quality of pain, radiation, increasing in intensity, decreasing in intensity, attributed to any risk factors and all this detail, any previous history of same kind of pain was there, sudden onset, or any other risk factors which we can think that yes, pain is there, means this was there. So all these are detailed history to come to some differential diagnosis. Then assessing patients' past obstetric history, medical, surgical, family history to identify any risk factor that predisposes to certain condition. Why we will ask about family history? Anyone has read this dog article? Anyone?
Family history due to Marfan syndrome, aortic dissection that causes acute abdomen.
Yes, yes, very good point. Very good. You see, again, if read the topic and then you listen, it becomes more, it makes your, what is that, information more strong. When you have read something, again, your ear, going through your ears, it becomes more permanent information. So, as we said, family history, Marfan syndrome. And now this may change our approach to the patient. Now, again, to ask in the history, what else? Ask about any trauma, including domestic violence. The detailed discussion we did about domestic violence that day, all aspects of domestic violence. Now, we know already pregnancy, it represents a period of higher risk of domestic abuse. Other causes of trauma include road traffic accidents and falls. So what was the percentage of domestic violence in pregnancy? We said that day.
1 in 4.
Is it 1 in 4?
12 to
Every
14.
third woman. Every third woman.
8 to 14.
Anyone else?
23%.
Use actually the common domestic violence, every 1 in 4 women. And but in pregnancy, 1 in 4, it will become 25%. But we said in pregnancy, it is 30%. That was our last lecture. So now we know the part of the history, what we are supposed to ask. Let us go now. Okay. Now, history of pain. We are asking now, we are seeing now in the history, one by one, the details. What details we will ask? Patient has presented with acute abdomen. So we are talking about pain. What we want to know about pain?
Onset.
Very good.
Onset, type of pain, characteristic of pain, aggravating factor, relieving factor.
Mhm.
Duration.
Excellent. Yes, very good.
Yes, or intermittent.
Yes, very
Associate-
nice.
Association.
Intensity. Association.
Nausea, vomiting, any urinary symptoms.
Mhm.
In relation to mood, whether pain is getting aggravated or relieved.
Yes, relieving and aggravating factors and all. So, actually, again, I try to make the things, what to say, colorful. And today, I think the color got changed. Color was different, but my daughter, she changed everything. So, colorful and more representable. So, at least whatever way you guys can memorize the things. So, what is the site of the pain? That will give us clue. As we said, right iliac fossa, the first thing will come to us. As long as we excluded ectopic and miscarriage things and all, it will come. Maybe this is appendicitis in early pregnancy. Late pregnancy, where will be the site of this appendicitis? Where it will go?
Right side.
Right side, where it will go?
It will radiate toward the umbilicus.
Epigastrium.
Towards the umbilicus.
Towards the umbilicus. Towards the umbilicus.
Hypochondrium.
Right hypochondrium.
Right hypochondrium.
Together with your, what is that? Gallbladder. Then the second thing, first we said, where is the site of the pain? No? First thing we will ask, where do you have pain? First, the question is that, where is your pain? Now, radiation, quality, duration, and timing that we said, the intensity, aggravating, relieving factor, since how long, onset, coming frequently, continuous. Then exacerbating and relieving factors, and any associated symptoms, as you said, any urinary symptom, any constipation, any diarrhea, any vomiting, any nausea. So the first thing, whenever anyone comes to us, what is our first question? Where is your pain? Is it going somewhere else? The type of pain, anything making it less or more? Anything else you have other than pain? This is our general thing, what we ask. Only we have to make it a little bit systematic. That's it. Any patient, if any patient comes to us with pain, these are the questions what we will ask, isn't it? So same thing in exam also, only it needs systematic approach. Okay, so we said about history of pain, we are asking. Still we have many things to talk about pain. Now, site and radiation. So we will see now one by one. Okay, when it is focal and sharp pain, what is the meaning of that? Like the patient, women will point with one finger. With one finger, oh, this is the point, here I am feeling pain. It is suggest. Sorry?
Peritoneal irritation.
Yes, it will suggest peritoneal irritation, peritonitis. Okay, that is focal. This I have highlighted in this type and all, because suppose if any scenario comes that she presented with focal pain and she's pointing with one finger, whatever the region they will give, but she's pointing with one finger. We should understand when the pointing with one finger word was there in presentation, it was there in TOG article, it is suggestive of peritoneal pain. Okay, focal, sharp, and pointing with one finger to the origin of the pain. So that will be peritoneal pain. Now, when it is segmentalized and it is poorly localized, means she will say, this is the part where I'm feeling, but I cannot say with one finger, but this is the part where I am feeling. Dull aching type. Yes, dull aching type, that is visceral pain. Okay, so we have focal, sharp, pointing with one finger. It will be suggestive of peritoneal pain. Segmentalized, dull aching, poorly localized, that is visceral pain. Okay, now this is becoming general with the quality of pain, how to differentiate whether it is any peritoneal pain or any particular visceral problem. Now, according to please put off your speaker, please.
Cannot understand like that.
Okay. Okay, now, hello. Am I audible or I muted myself also?
Yes, okay.
No, it's
Okay.
okay.
Okay. Now, pain related to foregut. Now we will try to divide our tummy in different boxes, in compartments to make it easier for ourselves. Pain related to foregut visceral structures, that is from mouth to proximal duodenum, including up to gallbladder, is generally felt in upper abdomen. Up to gallbladder, it is generally felt in upper abdomen. Now second, midgut structures, that is distal duodenum to mid transverse colon, is felt around the umbilicus. And the third thing, again, distal duodenum to mid transverse colon. This is the same thing, became double, sorry. Around the umbilicus. Third is, no, sorry. There was from our descending colon down onwards, it will be felt in lower abdomen. Sorry, one got doubled here. That was the sentence there. Okay. Now we are coming to this. We talked about tummy. From mouth to proximal duodenum, including gallbladder, it will be generally felt in upper abdomen. Then midgut structures like distal duodenum to mid transverse colon, it will be felt around the umbilicus. And from descending colon onwards, whatever the structures come down, bladder and all, it will be felt down in, it will be felt in lower abdomen. Now, shoulder tip pain will come with what?
Hemoperitoneum.
With diaphragm irritation, phrenic nerve involvement.
Yeah, whatever will irritate diaphragm, means something in the peritoneal cavity is irritating diaphragm. So either that is hemoperitoneum, any perforation, any leakage, it will give shoulder tip pain. Very good. So this was about site and radiation. Now we are coming to quality of pain. You people will think why I'm going into that much detail of this thing. Actually, this is the only topic there. And if any scenario comes, then with these small points, confusion starts there. That's why I thought just to go into, though brief, but detail of this one. Now, if it
Madam,
is...
can you please show the previous slide? Thank you.
Welcome, my dear. Now, sorry, little bit beautification got disturbed here. When it is colicky pain, what it will tell us? Colicky pain will tell us what?
Gut involvement. This
obstruction.
bowel.
Yes, very good. It is partial or complete obstruction of a hollow viscus, that is ureteric, biliary duct or bowel. This is our colicky pain. What what do we mean by colicky pain? It will be waves of pain will be coming and going, or increasing and decreasing, waves coming and going, increasing, decreasing. That is our colicky pain, which is related to either ureteric, biliary, or bowel obstruction, or partial or complete obstruction. Okay, colicky pain. Now, burning type of pain. Where do you think this pain, burning type of pain will be? In what
Yes.
places?
Urinary tract
Urinary
Urinary
infections.
tract and gastric
And
ulcer.
epigastric.
Peptic ulcer.
And also ischemic heart disease, maybe.
Yes, yeah. So it will be burning type of pain in epigastric region, and it will radiate in the chest. No, we say no that it is burning there and all. So this will be peptic ulcer, esophagogastric disease, or pancreatitis, whatever upper thing. Mostly, as we said, it will be upper abdomen. Constant pain. What will be the things?
Abruption.
Excellent. What else? We are talking here about other surgical things, no? So what will come to our brain other than obstruction? Abruption.
Peritonitis. Peritonitis.
Degenerating fibroid.
Yes.
Chorioamnitis, chorioamnitis.
In our obstetrical causes, what all you said are very, very correct. When we see the other surgical causes, there will be peritoneal inflammation. It will give constant pain. Okay. So we have colicky pain, which will be waves of pain coming and going, increasing, decreasing, which will be usually hollow structure, either complete or partial obstruction. That is either ureter, biliary duct, or bowel. Then we have burning type of pain, which will radiate retroexternally. It will be all including peptic ulcer, esophagus, pancreatitis. Constant pain, either focal or generalized. Mostly it will indicate peritoneal inflammation. These all points again we will see in detail also. So that was quality of pain. Now we are coming to duration and timing of pain. Sudden onset of severe pain should raise suspicion. As we said in ectopic, if the mild pain was there, but sudden severe pain means already it has ruptured ectopic and all. For example, pain may change in site or severity over the time. That's why whenever any patient presents with chronic, with acute abdomen, though we did not get immediate diagnosis, and the patient, when there is observation, under observation, regular evaluation and re-evaluation is very, very important, because the pain, site, duration, and intensity and all severity may change. So regular evaluation and re-evaluation is very, very important. This is what they have given: UK deaths caused by non-obstetrical abdominal pathology in pregnancy. That data they have given. I found it something just to present here. There is a splenic artery aneurysm. There were 9 deaths with that. So I thought just to bring it here. Other causes are liver failure, pancreatitis, intestinal obstruction, peritonitis, Crohn's disease, liver rupture, and all these things. But splenic artery aneurysm is nothing here, here 3 and here 9, which is the highest number. So that's why in our differential diagnosis also we have aneurysm. So the most common is which aneurysm? Which aneurysm more common to have acute abdomen?
Splenic
artery.
Splenic artery. Splenic artery aneurysm. Now the factors which will affect the intensity of pain, exacerbating and relieving. Now, patient reporting visceral pain often describes restlessness. Those with what is that? Parietal injury or irritation describes movements as exacerbating the pain. So this will be, those who are with visceral pain, they will be like as if restless. And those with are like this peritoneal injury or irritation and all, the pain will increase in intensity. And a certain limit will come when it will become like generalized tenderness, as we said, constant pain. That will be peritoneal inflammation. Now, history we finished about pain, all the details about pain, site, quality of the pain, duration, intensity, radiation. Accordingly, we differentiated with nature of pain, how to come to some idea. Now we are coming to examination. What is the first thing we will do when we ask the history, if the patient is in a position to present the history or from the attendance? After that, what is the first thing we should do?
Where is the pain? Site of
Palpation.
BP and pulse.
Maintain
Vitals.
ABC, stabilize the patient.
Excellent. Yes. The most important is life support for the care, life support care for the patient. A, B, C, D, and E. What A, B, C, everybody knows. What is D and E? Who has read dog article?
D is for drugs and E.
You guys will think till we finish this slide, because there is, in the end it will come. So we are doing the examination. Very important thing, if the patient is at risk of something, if the patient is generally stable or not. So we have to stabilize the patient first. That is our A, B, C, D, and E. We will talk that because it will come. Then pregnancy, whenever now we are attending the patient and whatever resuscitative measures we are doing to patient, what should be kept in our mind? That there will be pregnancy specific physiological changes will be there, no? Pregnancy specific, there will be changes in body, in blood, in serum, in respiration, in heart rate, everything. Those changes anatomically, uterus, gravid uterus will be compressing aorta and all. It will be compressing. It will be what is that, compromising respiration and all. All these factors supposed to be kept in mind. So now this is our examination thing. First we stabilized. We did airway, breathing, circulation. D and E still I will not say what is that. Then we understood before doing anything that yes, there will be pregnancy specific changes, and keeping those in mind only we have to deal the patient. When we are doing abdominal examination, supposed to be what principle we follow when we are examining abdomination?
Inspection, palpation, percussion, auscultation.
Auscultation.
Very good. Very good. So the principle is inspection, generalized inspection, to see for what?
Shape of the
Any
abdomen,
tenderness,
any swelling in the
or any
abdomen,
swelling, mass,
Pattern of
asymmetry
respiration.
Any
pulse
any
dilation
not
visible visible
pregnancy,
scar,
like
dilated vein, any bulging, distension,
hernial orifices.
dilated veins.
Yes, yes. Any visible scar, any dilated vessels, any herniation. This is just inspection. We are only seeing it. After that, we will go for palpation. Then our, what is that? 4-quadrant palpation, as you said initially. Percussion will be there, auscultation will be there, and digital rectal examination. Okay, this is for what? Because sometimes, because of gravid uterus, most of the organs, we will not be able to reach them. Isn't it? To assess the tenderness and all, we will not be able to reach them. So there will be digital rectal examination. This is our A, B, C, D, and E. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So here D is different, E is different, other than our what we say there, drugs and all. Now, whenever we are dealing with a woman who presented with acute abdomen, definitely, as we said earlier, first we try to see any pregnancy specific consideration has to be kept in mind, what all those are. Total, this is just simple. We will not go in much detail of it, but just to put it here, because you have to have one glimpse of it. Total blood volume increases by approximately 40%. Cardiac output increases 10 to 30%. Because of this, cardiac output, 10 to 30% rise in stroke volume and rise in resting heart rate from normal 70 beats to 80 to 90 beats. Now, change to the respiratory system are less marked. However, metabolic rate increases, leading to increase in oxygen consumption of 20%. which is slight rise in basal body temperature as a byproduct. Now, to meet the increased need of oxygen requirement of body by uterus and everything and all, ventilation will increase by 40%. So that will be physiological hyperventilation in pregnancy. But there is no change in vital capacity or respiratory rate. Pregnant women breathe more deeply, increasing their tidal volume from 500 to 700, thus increasing respiratory capacity. I thought just to put it here, no need to go into more details of it here for this article. When we see the respiratory system, when we see asthma and the other things and all, there, yes, it will be of importance. Now, we are coming to anatomical consideration. We saw what will be the physiological changes in pregnancy we have to keep in mind. Now, anatomical consideration, gravid uterus. So what is the role of gravid uterus here? How will it affect the things? Patient presented, she is in acute abdomen, and suddenly you find the patient is collapsed. So when you are going to do resuscitation, what will be the role of gravid uterus in 28 weeks pregnant?
It will compress the water, so
Venous return.
Pressure
compress the water and the will be less effective.
Difficult resuscitation.
Yes, difficult resuscitation. It will compromise venous return. So we will see what all this uterus will do. The first thing, gravid uterus can hamper clinical assessment. As we said, some of the viscera which will be compressed by uterus and all, maybe we will not be able to reach them easily. So that will be our clinical assessment. Second thing, more difficult to identify what? Free fluid in peritoneal cavity or hemoperitoneum. If the uterus is already bigger in size, it will be difficult to find out that there is any peritoneal irritation. Then, if there is any masses or pathology, again, that will be difficult to palpate. And again, if there is obesity, means there is more difficult time to, it will become a diagnostic challenge. So all these things with gravid uterus, we will keep in mind while we are examining the patient. Plus the most important thing, when it comes that thing of resuscitation, the details, as you all said, it will compromise venous return and all, it will compromise respiration, all will come in the management plan when we are managing the patient, okay? Now, one by one, what we said, quadrant wise, or in whatever 1, 2, 3, 4, this chart is from TOG only. I have taken as it is. When we will go into the detail, we will see all the details are there only. Ruptured aneurysm, appendicitis, then biliary colic and acute cholecystitis, all will be there in detail. So we will not go details of chart. If anything remaining, we can come back to the chart, no problem. Bowel obstruction, pancreatitis, then peptic ulcer disease, UTI, that we will come back, it is there. Now, when patient presented, and we said that initially we are doing what all we saw, the ABCD, then we are taking temperature, pulse, blood pressure, everything and all. What else? Commonly, we will think about whatever conditions comes to our brain, accordingly what test we will do further. Any patient presented, now she's already going to collapse, you resuscitate her, you don't know anything, there is acute abdomen. 1, 2, 3, 4, what all will come to brain?
If the patient is collapsed, check for whether patient is breathing, then start with CPCR, then check the vitals, pulse, blood pressure.
Yeah, we did. We resuscitated the patient. Now we have to investigate the cause of her acute abdomen. She had presented with acute abdomen.
Labs, we will send the labs.
We will send the labs.
The ABG will arrange the ultrasonography for the patient. Will auscultate the fetal heart, whether it is in good condition.
Very good. Good. So we will see one by one what all we are going to do here. Now, like systematic approach, as we said, first we saw the patient, we did a history, examination. Now we are coming to investigation. After all this, all after resuscitation, if patient has presented in that condition. So here now, what points are there? Bedside routine observation, that is pulse, blood pressure, temperature, respiration, oxygen saturation, and urine dipstick. This is the first thing. Now, on automated reagent strip reading device 1+ or more, consideration of hypertensive disease. This is for dipstick. Dipstick if it came 1+ or more. So about any hypertensive disease to be kept in mind. What is the PC protein creatinine ratio will be considered abnormal, and what is the value of 24-hour urine protein collection will be abnormal. Now we are talking one by one. Suppose the patient came with severe epigastric pain, we are thinking of PET, for example. So what is protein creatinine ratio and what is our 24-hour urine protein collection value?
Protein ratio 30 milligram per millimole, and 24-hour urinary protein is more than 300 milligram.
Very good. So this was our first thing, 1+ if urine protein comes on dipstick. Then more objectively, we see with PCR or 24-hour urine protein collection. Now, suppose if very high amount of urine protein is showing, very high amount suddenly, what would it indicate?
Nephrotic syndrome, renal involvement.
Yes, renal involvement, nephrotic syndrome. Good point. Now, suppose the presence of leukocytes and nitrates are indicative. When nitrite is there, mostly what we feel that yes, there is some urinary infection, and yes, and midstream urine should be sent for urine culture. So this is we started with pulse, temperature, blood pressure, respiration, oxygen saturation. Now dipstick. From dipstick, slowly we are going up. We have seen PCR, we have seen 24-hour collection. That comes next thing. Then if sudden gross amount of urinary proteinuria is seen, then it will indicate some renal pathology. If there is leukocytes and nitrites, we should send midstream urine sample for urine culture, suspecting that possibility of urinary infection. Try to see these small points, because maybe the simple word will be there in nitrite with such a very big scenario. If we miss that this is simple scenario and answer will be urinary infection. So small points, please try to concentrate. Now, what we will do, we were talking about epigastric pain and investigation, what we are doing. Again, as we said, the epigastric pain, retroesternal radiation and all, myocardial infarction. In women, first we thought about PET, now we are thinking about myocardial infarction. In women of childbearing age, it is rare. 6.2 per 100,000 deliveries. And pregnancy increases the risk by 3 to 4 times. There is one complete talk article on this, and many question comes from there. Not many question, every exam there is question from there. So this is myocardial infarction. Risk in pregnancy, it increases the risk by 3 to 4 times. It is not very common in pregnancy. It is rare, 6.2 per 100,000. But pregnancy itself will increase the risk 3 to 4 times. The risk is further increased with advanced maternal age, particularly those who are more than 40. Okay, now acute MI can present as acute upper abdominal pain, as we said, or even symptoms suggestive of gastroesophageal reflux disease. Therefore, ECG should be considered. So suppose if we get any scenario in exam with severe upper abdominal pain, with doing all the investigations with point of view of our PET, impending eclampsia and all, together with that, this point also should be kept in consideration. Is that okay?
Yes, madam.
Okay.
Madam, they say that in pregnancy it increases 3 to 4-fold times.
3 to 4 times. Whatever pregnancy will increase the risk of myocardial infarction. Whatever in general population, pregnancy will increase that risk 3 to 4 times, risk of myocardial infarction.
Okay, madam. As like we said that in the reproductive age, the women are least likely to MI if they have no until they have any other major risk factor. But in postmenopausal age, the women are more at risk for MI as compared.
Yes. Yeah.
But in pregnancy, this risk is increasing.
Increase 3 to 4 times.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, my dear. Now, other investigations, what we are doing. So we did urine. We did our, what is that? With urine, we started with a small UTI. When we see nitrite and leukocyte, when we are seeing urine protein 1+, we suspected preeclampsia. We did that, all the detailed investigation. With this epigastric pain, we tried to exclude preeclampsia. We tried to exclude myocardial infarction. We did ECG there. Now we are proceeding with other biochemical parameters. What other biochemical parameters you think we should include? ABG, someone said earlier, that was very good point. What
For
else?
renal assessment, we can do blood urea, serum electrolytes, and serum creatinine. And
Yeah,
for
renal
liver
function
function,
test.
we can do ALT, AST, and serum bilirubin.
Okay, now whenever anyone presents with acute abdomen, some suspicious is going on that somewhere some infection is there. That is common consensus in our brain, it comes, no? So what we will do, full blood count to see hemoglobin. If any bleeding inside is happening, hemoglobin, white blood cell count, as you said, liver function test, urea electrolyte. Then to assess infection, we are doing C-reactive protein. And when we are thinking, because we are thinking together, the whole tummy, amylase, है ना? It will tell us about pancreas because we are seeing everything together. So, full blood count we did.
Very nice point. Thank you.
So, full blood count we did. Suspected infection. So, we did C-reactive protein. Something associated with liver. We are doing liver function test to assess kidney. We are doing urea electrolyte. Pancreas, we should not leave it. So, we are doing amylase. Then, moderate. Sorry?
Amylase and lipase.
Amylase and lipase, but there is one statement is there later on. It is one is more specific. Which one is there? We will see it. Then a moderate rise in leukocyte count is normal in pregnancy. So normal values 5.9 to 15.6. Okay. So moderate rise of leukocyte is normal in pregnancy. Now about CRP, what is being given? CRP is a useful marker of underlying infection and inflammation. In pregnancy, the upper limit of normal is suggested as 20 milligram per liter. A rise in CRP level is considered more reliable as a marker of infection. Okay, so this is we are doing CRP for infection. ABG, someone already said earlier, ABG, they have role in assessment of certain surgical condition, but this should prompt the discussion by a senior anesthetist and surgeon. Definitely when patient present with acute abdomen and respiratory distress as well, definitely we will involve surgeon and anesthetist and all. So this will be like our, what we are doing, systematic approach. Still we are on biochemical things. So here clear so far?
Ma'am, previous slide, please.
Ma'am, C-reactive protein has been considered as a non-specific marker, no?
I know, nowadays the other one, what is it? What is the other one?
Calcitonin.
Yeah, but till RCOG changes it, whatever they have given, we are supposed to talk that. I know in our hospital
Even in
also.
sepsis, ma'am, they said you think about lactate.
Yeah, that will come. It is coming there.
Okay.
It is coming. In severe sepsis and all, it is coming there.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, welcome.
Yes, I think so. They changed the level of the lactate also. Before 4, now they are telling 2. I think so. Something like that.
It is
Normal cutoff.
okay, now, oh, someone was desperately remembering lactate. Lactate is here. Okay, so as we said, it is used in recognition of sepsis. This we have seen in detailed with our, which guideline?
Sepsis guideline.
Sepsis guideline. Sepsis guideline. Yeah. So once it is more than 4, we know that sepsis 6 bundle. Anyone is remembering just to present that bundle quickly? So it will be one revision, quick revision also.
Take a lactate within 6 hours, antibiotic within 1 hour, give the IV fluid.
Take blood culture before starting. Culture starting before starting antibiotic.
Yes. 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 The point is, we say all the point, but it needs little concentration and brushing it. When we talk about antibiotic, when the patient is in sepsis, it is broad spectrum antibiotic. Broad spectrum antibiotic, little point can change our answer, you know, like that. So that is sepsis 6 bundle, elected all the cultures to be collected within 1 hour, broad spectrum antibiotic. And once we suspect if the patient is not improving without our hydration, whatever we are giving hydration with what? With what fluid? What fluid we are giving?
Ma'am, crystalloids.
Crystalloids.
Initially
Crystalloids.
crystalloid.
Yes. At what rate?
2.5 liter first and
Something different in chart. That will be homework. Something
80 ml
different
per
in
hour.
chart. You
3.5
guys,
liter total fluid.
that is PPH guideline. That is PPH. But here with sepsis, that is different.
20
And-
ml per kg.
Yes, excellent. Beautiful point. Beautiful point. There is little small points, but it makes big difference. Are you dealing with the sepsis? You are dealing with postpartum hemorrhage. There is different rate is given. Overall outcome is the same, but how will be our approach? Still patient is not responding. Central venous line you are putting for what? For oxygen saturation. You are seeing superior vena cava saturation. You are seeing mixed oxygen saturation. Mixed saturation, what limit maximum? More than 65%. Superior vena cava saturation, what? More than 70%. This should be on tip of your tongue, because this is exam. This will be questions, and this is in front of your eyes. Just you have to memorize it. Because once it will be by heart, even if someone will wake you up from sleep and tell, you will say lactate. Yes. What fluid you will give? Crystalloids. What is the rate? This. Not improving. What you will do? Central venous line. What further? This is the thing. Okay. Everything is there. Guideline means it should become for you like as if each and every word in front of your eyes, it should come once it question comes in exam. Do like that. Our GTGs, please no compromise with even single line of GTG. Everything should be crystal clear for you people. So our lactate reminded us good things about sepsis. Then we are coming to imaging part. Imaging, we have what all the modalities? We have ultrasound, we have CT scan, and we have MRI. But there will be little different in all these things. What could be the confusion between this CT and MRI? What is the problem with CT?
No CT in the pregnancy.
When to use CT and when not.
Voice got disconnected. What is the
MRI
issue?
safe in the
Depend upon the X-ray.
pregnancy.
MRI is safe in pregnancy. Yes, good point.
Ultrasound and MRI are safe, while X-ray and CT scans are not safe in pregnancy.
What happens with CT
But
scan?
total exposure of X-ray and CT scan can be considered as a life-threatening condition.
Yes, good point. Yes. Yes. What else happens with CT scan?
Radiation.
It will come. It will come in our
Harm to the
lecture.
fetus?
Sorry?
Harm to the fetus?
Yes. Yes. Very good point. It has teratogenic effects in early embryogenesis, and later on it has neonatal and childhood cancer. Okay, that also
in first trimester MRI is avoided or not?
it is safe only because it doesn't have any radiation, no. But unless it is needed any exposure, unless it is really very necessary, better to be avoided. Better to be avoided. But MRI, it doesn't have any radiation, so they haven't mentioned whether first trimester it should be avoided and all. Okay, we will see all the details one by one of MRI, CT and ultrasound and all. We will see that. Now the point, what is given, the important point, requesting imaging should not delay treatment in unstable patient. That we know already. When the patient is unstable, we should not wait, let the ultrasound finish, let CT, then we will decide. No. And in consultation with a senior surgeon and balance the risk and benefits to mother and child. Whatever we do, we have to evaluate risk and benefit of any of our intervention, what we are doing there. Okay, so we started with examination, assessment, history, examination. Then our assessment, investigations, we started with simple urine, then we reached to CBC, then we reached to renal and liver function test, then we reached with pancreatic assessment, then further we excluded our pre-eclampsia, we excluded myocardial infarction with epigastric pain. We are further proceeding with any suspected infection, so CRP, sepsis, so lactate. Further, we are going with imaging modalities, which is ultrasound, CT scan, MRI. One by one, we will see the details of it. But doing all these things, we should not compromise patient care. When the patient is unstable, the most important is first is to stabilize the patient, senior involvement. Clear so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Now, you see, this is what is that? Radiation exposure. The estimated fetal dose of radiation per examination is 2 to 7 per 10 here. It became one sentence different. Plain film chest X-ray and erect chest X-ray with abdominal shielding can be considered safe. Now, per exposure, this we are talking about X-ray now. It is 2 to 7 of 10,000.
Milligauss.
10,000 milligauss. Okay? Milligram, gray or gyre, whatever pronunciation we will do. So this is about X-ray we are talking. Now, what will have the negligible risk to the developing fetus? Up to what limit?
10
Up to 10 gyri.
Up to 10 milligauss. Okay? Up to 10
milligauss.
Okay, up to 10 milligauss. Now, what is so with this, up to this limit, it is, you see, 0.002% risk of childhood cancer. Very, very minimal. This also very minimal. Okay, with this limit, negligible risk to developing pregnancy in any trimester and carries an increased risk to childhood cancer. This is up to which is considered negligible risk, 10 milligauss, negligible risk. Now, the presence of air under the diaphragm suggests perforation of a viscus with high sensitivity but low. If abdominal signs of peritonitis are present, more sensitive imaging will be MRI to make a definitive diagnosis. We will see this point in MRI. When we said we will talk about MRI, where it will be more specific. And plus about CT scan also, the details also will come of CT scan about childhood cancer and neonatal cancer also. Okay.
Madam, please previous slide.
1 minute, huh? Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome, my dear. So now one by one we are talking about investigation. As we said, first we are talking about ultrasound. So ultrasound we will do for two reasons. One is to see baby, which is our obstetrical ultrasound, baby and placenta. Second, non-obstetrical things will be told to us by ultrasound. So what we will see with obstetrical point of view, what we will see with non-obstetrical point of view. Yes, anyone?
Fetal viability.
Yes, excellent.
From obstetric point of view, we'll see the retroplacental. If there is any bleeding, the amount of the liquor is there. Then fetal Doppler indices. If baby is compromising, we will perform the biophysical profile also. In non-obstetric cases, we will look for the other visceral pathologies, whether there is a free fluid in the peritoneal, like in the abdominal cavity, and if there is any obstruction.
Any ovarian pathology?
Yeah, very good. All points were very, very good. So the first thing, when we are doing obstetrical point of view, first we are seeing baby, viability of pregnancy. Second part, we are seeing placenta. Of course, all liquor and everything we are seeing. Now, related to uterus, fibroid, and together with the uterus, ovary. This combined we are seeing with obstetrical point of view. Okay. Now, when we are going to non-obstetrical thing, go one by one to each quadrant and see in that quadrant what you can see on ultrasound. Start from right iliac fossa, go up. Right iliac fossa, you will see appendix. If it is early pregnancy, you will go to the second, the upper right side, middle quadrant, you will see there your renal thing. Then you go right upper quadrant, you will see gallbladder, your liver. When you go the other side, anywhere else, anything is remaining? No, the other things will be with the different modality. So in each quadrant, just see what you can see on ultrasound. So this will be our obstetrical assessment, non-obstetrical assessment with ultrasound. Okay? Because ultrasound will not tell us more than these details. Am I making any sense here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, what is the, see, I told the answer, no, but again, what is the possibility if any suspected appendicitis, what is the possibility it will be seen by ultrasound? What is the percentage?
60%. 60%.
60%.
Yeah, madam, not much helpful, just 60%.
Okay, and ultrasound will be inconclusive up to 90%. Now other things. Okay, MRI versus CT scan. As we said, MRI is preferred because there is no associated risk of ionizing radiation to mother or fetus. Another thing with CT scan, we forgot mother also. Mother also is getting radiation. No, what is the risk of cancer? Which cancer comes to mother with CT scan?
Breast cancer.
Breast cancer.
Breast cancer.
Breast.
Breast cancer. Yes. Breast cancer. So MRI is preferred because there is no associated risk of ionizing radiation to mother or fetus, and it has been shown to demonstrate equivalent accuracy. That is again another important point. Means we are not compromising the diagnosis. है ना? Same thing is coming. But it needs availability and a skilled person to do it. Okay, so this is with MRI. Now about CT scan, this is most sensitive and specific modality for the investigation of abdominal pain. But in doing so, the fetus and mother are both exposed to a dose of radiation. This was our concern. As high as 30 to 50 milligray. What was the threshold we have seen there to have
10
the very
milliliters.
10.
Up
Yes.
to 10.
Yes. And what was the radiation exposure we have seen with X-ray?
2 to 7.
4 to 7? 4 to 7.
Per 10 raised to power 4.
If any confusion, to clear that time only. 2 to 7 with every 10 raised to power 4 milligray. Okay? Very good. Actually, this X-ray is implanted in my brain. That was my question in part 3.
Dr. Samita?
Yes, my dear.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yes, in this slide we said ultrasound inclusive 90%. Ultrasound is inclusive
in 90%. Yes. Yes, dear.
In 90% cases of what about of obstetric or non-obstetric?
I'm sorry, I am not hearing you. You mean to say of obstetrical or non-obstetrical thing?
I think, madam, she's saying that this 90% inconclusive comes in which regard? This 90% inconclusive is for the obstetric, for regarding the ultrasound, obstetric, non-obstetric, or either to appendix?
Not mostly. It is given in the line of appendix only. It is given in TOG article with line of appendix. Obstetrical, definitely that is our first line of modality of investigation in ultrasound for obstetrical. Never it will be obstetrical.
Yeah, because ultrasound is giving us a lot of information. After that we are going to help
it is
for
in the
our
appendix only. Appendix only. I will tell you one secret. Today, before I went to clinic, I told my daughter just to see some font and some size and all. So I think that my read from here, it was here. It was here. It went there. So I'm sorry for that. So it is sensitive only 60% cases, and mostly 90% it will be inconclusive. This is for appendix. Okay? Okay, clear this point, my dear?
Yes, madam, for me.
Okay. So we said about MRI versus CT scan, availability, skills is very, very important. Then we said about CT scan, radiation exposure as high as 30 to 50 milligray. Now, what is the thing with this CT scan? Most susceptible to teratogenic effects of ionizing radiation during the period of organogenesis, which is between 5 and 15 weeks of gestation. Between 5 and 15 weeks, there will be teratogenicity, because that is organogenetic period. This is with CT scan we are talking about. And the second thing, risk to fetus is small, but the risk of childhood cancer is 0.1%, and adult cancers is 0.3%. Okay, these are two important points with this CT scan. CT scan, radiation as high as 30 to 50 milligray. After that, teratogenicity in organogenetic period, which is between 5 and 15 weeks. Then childhood cancer, that is 0.1%, and fatal adult cancer by 0.3%.
Excuse me, madam.
Yes, dear.
Here in the CT scan, the word is more sensitive and specific modality for investigation of abdominal pain.
Exactly, yeah.
But it has this radiation exposure, therefore we are not optioning this one.
Yes.
But what about the MRI? So MRI is not superior than the CT scan, or CT scan?
It has been shown to demonstrate equivalent accuracy. But still, it is not better than CT scan. CT scan can be better than MRI. So where the situation comes, that result is very inconclusive, and the mother's life is at risk. And this intervention, suppose if this intervention is going to save her life, in that case, we don't see this point, this radiation, then we go ahead with CT scan.
Okay, so we have to individualize the patient according to the need.
Excellent. Yes, according to the need. So the first line is our after ultrasound and what all is MRI, because there is equivalent accuracy is there. Accuracy is there, but specificity and more sensitivity comes with CT scan.
Okay, madam. Thank
Okay,
you.
dear. Welcome, my dear. So, Khalas, shall we proceed further? Now, yes, we are coming to management. We did investigation. We finished all lab. We finished biochemical. We finished ultrasound. We finished MRI, CT scan. We excluded. Now we are coming to management part. Initial resuscitation part. We said earlier, when any patient presents, we will resuscitate the patient. Analgesia. Analgesia. Any specific consideration with analgesia? Anything specific with analgesia we will keep in mind. Patient presented with acute abdomen, suspicious of sepsis. Any specific thing with analgesia?
Morphine.
When any patient presents with suspicious of sepsis,
Morphine should not be the NSAID avoided due to nephropathy.
Opiates should be should not use.
Avoid pethidine.
Why to avoid pethidine if to avoid, and why to avoid NSAID if to avoid?
NSAID
NSAID may cause renal impairment.
One by one.
Adverse effect on the
NSAID
renal
affects
system
the kidneys function.
and also livers.
It will keep open this PDA in the pregnancy, so avoid NSAIDs.
Sorry.
Closure of doctor's
No, yeah, that is there. That point is there. But on mother's health, first we are seeing mother. For mother's health, when there is sepsis, suspected sepsis, we should avoid NSAIDs. And
For
someone said,
Because already renal involvement is
Renal
there.
and
Okay.
compromise the renal and renal function.
What else?
Suppress neutrophils. It suppress
Convulsion.
neutrophils.
What is that? Polymorphs. Polymorphs. Excellent point. It affects the ability of polymorphs to fight against infection. Renal also, renal compromise is very important point. But plus the most important thing is NSAIDs, it affects polymorphs to fight against this infection. So already patient's health is compromised. We need polymorphs to fight against this infection, and also it affects NSAIDs. That's why it should be avoided. And someone said pethidine. Why not to give pethidine? Pethidine or morphine, why?
And pethidine has more teratogenic effects.
Sorry?
Low threshold for conversion due to pethidine.
No. Pethidine has what? One said some convulsion. Yes, that we will talk.
Threshold for
What else?
conversion.
What else?
Renal, because renal system is affected, so excretion will be affected.
No, it doesn't affect renal system. Pethidine does not affect renal system.
No, ma'am.
And
Renal pethidine excretion.
yeah, but in what cases it will
Concentration
be
will-
affected? In what cases it will be affected? Someone said convulsion. In what cases?
It causes low threshold for convulsion.
Why? In which cases?
Epilepsy, we have
Epilepsy.
Epilepsy and
We don't give pethidine in epilepsy in SLE. Sickle cell. Right.
sickle cell. Okay, it causes convulsion. How it causes convulsion now? You people started, so you will answer me now. What is the
It is
patho?
leptogenic.
Why?
Oh,
No, it is not epileptogenic.
It has a metabolite.
Pethidine is also causes convulsion.
How it causes convulsion?
It get
Because the
metabolized.
It has a
in liver.
metabolite which
metabolite named
Norpethidine.
or something like this.
Norpethidine, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Then what happens?
It is also causes convulsion.
How?
Epileptogenic.
How? That's what I'm asking.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, no problem. Good initiative. But you said what point you said that is very correct. Actually, pethidine is metabolized by liver and it will be excreted via kidney. Now, when it will be metabolized, the metabolite of pethidine will come norpethidine. In normal functioning kidney and all, there is no issue. It will be excreted out. But where the kidney is already compromised, like as we said there in, what is the name, sickle cell people and all, those who are already with diabetic nephropathy and all, those cases where the kidney is already compromised, this norpethidine, which is the metabolite of pethidine, cannot be excreted. So what it will do, it will trigger in brain the neurons of these epileptic things. And that's how they will become high risk to have more risk of convulsion. This is the pathophysiology behind this pethidine and convulsions. About pethidine in sepsis, as we said, the kidney will be compromised. So yes, that convulsion, but this will be like this, but routinely we do give. But where the patient is already like collapsing or semi-conscious and this and that and pain, that time if you give pethidine, whether she's becoming more semi-conscious and drowsy with pethidine or with something else, that we will not be able to differentiate. If patient presented with pain, let us think that was suspected ectopic. If we gave her pethidine, she became drowsy. Now she's becoming drowsy because of inside she's bleeding, or she's becoming drowsy because of your pethidine. You will not be able to differentiate that. So that is the role again of pethidine, where it is not very first line drug to be given.
And
Okay.
that means selective use?
Yes, selective use.
It will mask the symptoms, so that's why also.
This will mask the symptoms, so you will not be able to find out that what is happening with her ectopic. So it will be selective use. Directly, totally pethidine is not contraindicated. Okay.
Ma'am, what is the first line of painkiller in that cases?
Simple Panadol. First we give that only. You have that pain management ladder, no? In sickle cell guideline.
Okay, ma'am.
What is the ladder there? Whenever we ask question, we get more and more. Like
Ma'am,
this,
Panadol is with mild disease and for the
What is that?
First we give morphine, and in between we give opioids.
And
Their
in
first
severe
line
cases,
is morphine?
injectable opioid.
No, ma'am. First we give Panadol.
Yes.
If the pain is very much severe, we give morphine. But if the pain is moderate intensity, we give opioids.
There is in between something is missed with that ladder.
In mild cases, we give the PCM. In moderate, we give opioid, weak opioid. In severe cases, the morphine or injectable, either IM or IV, we give.
Yes, this is what I'm.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
oral
same thing.
And
Same thing.
NSAIDs between 12 to 28 weeks.
Yes, so someone will make this chart of pain management in pregnancy, whatever, without labor, huh? Because labor, then we will reach to epidural. Someone will make this chart and post in the group, okay?
So, ma'am.
Okay, good. So what we did now, our management constitutes what? Resuscitation, analgesia, differential diagnosis. Resuscitation, analgesia to manage there, and differential diagnosis to manage the cause. Okay? Now, in differential diagnosis, observation, and what we will do after we did the differential diagnosis, we will be with the two things again. Either we will observe very close surveillance, or we will do surgical intervention. Okay. First we did step by step. We did resuscitation. We managed the pain. We did the differential diagnosis. All we excluded this 1, 2, 3. Now in the end we came up with 2 points. Either we will do close observation, or we will do surgical intervention. So all these things will be with MDT. So what MDT you think will be included here? What MDT?
Surgeon,
Senior obstetrician,
medicine,
senior
Yes.
anesthetist,
Yes.
or
that is also.
senior neonatologist,
Yes. If we are planning to deliver.
hematologist,
Mm-hmm.
senior surgeon,
Mm-hmm.
And senior nurse for monitoring stuff.
GI
Yes.
surgeon.
senior staffing.
Yes. Yes. All the details will be there. Now, anesthetic and medical consideration in acutely unwell patient, or where surgery is considered, this involvement, optimization of medical comorbidities, multi-speciality input, and early involvement of senior anesthetist. Okay. So all, whatever we are, whatever our differential diagnosis comes, involvement of all those, if she has any medical comorbidity and all, to optimize it, MDT involvement, early involvement of senior anesthetist, early involvement of senior surgeon. Experienced obstetrician, as we said, it is important in the, if any operative intervention is being considered, also to plan, to assess, and to optimize the patient's health before referral to the theater. Okay, this is this slide. Now where to keep the patient? Delivery suite HDU is.
Thank you.
Welcome. Delivery site high dependency unit is the most appropriate, as long as the patient is still stable and does not need the sorry to say, but ventilation and all like that. So delivery suite.
Sorry, can I see the last slide, please?
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Shukran.
Welcome, my dear. Welcome. So high dependency unit is the most appropriate place for the patient. I have highlighted it so that if any question comes, especially when she is in 3rd trimester, especially when 3rd trimester, so delivery suite HDU. If operative intervention is needed, surgery is associated with a small increased risk in miscarriage of 0.7% and preterm labor 3.2%. Okay, now they have given here approach, laparoscopic approach or laparotomy, little difference with some studies they said there is no difference with the approach. Okay, so if surgical intervention we do, possibility of miscarriage 0.7% and preterm labor 3.2%. Again, before doing any intervention, again and again, either any risk and benefit to mother and to baby, advantage, disadvantage to mother, to be. Any women undergoing, okay, now what points we will consider? Anyone after 24 weeks when we are doing any interventions? We are doing intervention now, we have to deliver to mother's health is getting compromised and we have to deliver. We are managing mother. Together with that, what other points we will keep into consideration?
Steroid cover.
Give DEXA cover to the baby.
After 24 and before 28 with the senior obstetrician only we'll give the steroid.
Neuroprotection Maxal.
Magnesium sulfate.
Who said before 24 and 28? Who will revise this DEXA? That day we revised it already again. Who will say this about dexamethasone? Where to offer, where to consider?
Steroid will be given. Steroid will be given from 24 to.
It should
24
be,
to
we will
33 plus 6 weeks.
Steroid will
And
be
consider from
One
34
by
to
one.
24 plus 6 weeks up to 30 plus weeks.
Dr. Famida, it's 23,
Hello?
23 plus
For
6 will
steroid,
consider. And
we
then
offer
from
between
24 to 33 plus 6 will offer. And then again from 34 to 35 plus 6 will consider.
Consider, excellent. So any women undergoing surgery after 20 weeks of gestation should be positioned with left lateral. This we know because of gravid uterus. Between 24 and 34 plus 6 weeks of gestation, preoperative steroids should be where clinical situation permits. This is again important point. Then, and we know for what? We know for baby's lungs maturity, all the things. Fetal monitoring, that is auscultation of fetal heart in second trimester, CTG in third trimester should be carried out before and after the procedure, whatever procedure we do. After, suppose if we already do cesarean section, after that it is not needed. Selectively, suppose if we did for laparoscopy, for cholecystectomy, laparoscopy for appendectomy and all in all this case. So fetal heart auscultation in second trimester and CTG in third trimester. Steroid course selectively where clinical situation will permit and to mobilize the uterus because it will compromise cardiac return, it will compromise it will hamper resuscitative measures.
Ma'am, is it right that before 28 we need to take senior obstetrician's opinion while giving the steroid to the
Before
baby?
what gestational age?
Before 28 week of gestation?
No. It is now the new guideline of this GTG from, if you read that PPROM guideline and all, from 24 plus 0 up to 33 plus 6 weeks, we will directly offer. Before that, which is 23 to 23 plus 6, which is gross prematurity, there you will take senior obstetrician involvement before giving DEXA.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, welcome. So now we are coming what? We did whatever operative intervention and all we did during operation, before operation, what consideration that we did. Now we are doing post-operatively. Post-operatively, what two important points will come?
Intake output.
Thromboprophylaxis.
Okay.
Thromboembolism prophylaxis.
Very good. Thromboprophylaxis, and if she is already rhesus negative, NTD, according to what intervention we did. Okay, so this is again why I highlighted this point. This is very nicely we know that NTD to be given, but suppose in the scenario if it was mentioned that patient is rhesus negative and whatever tick 1 2 3 4 done, answer will be only needed that NTD, but that time we don't concentrate on that. We try to see, she presented with acute abdomen, already they intervened, they did a surgery and this and that. That is small point we miss. That's why I highlighted it here. Now we will come one by one to conditions. We will try not to more details and all. What will be the key points to be seen in this thing? Now acute appendicitis.
Previous slide, please. Previous slide, please.
Previous than this also?
No, not this one, just previous one.
Thank you. Okay, so about appendicitis, which is the surgical condition, which is the most common acute surgical cause of abdominal pain in pregnancy?
Appendicitis.
Appendicitis. And which is the second one?
Variances?
Polycystic.
Cholecystitis.
From right iliac fossa, you go up to right hypochondrium.
Cholecystitis.
Cholecystitis. Okay. So first is acute appendicitis, most common cause of acute surgical abdomen in pregnancy. It is affecting 1 in 800 to 1500 pregnancies. It occurs most commonly in second trimester. I don't know why. Anyone knows the answer? So tell me. Then appendiceal perforation is, however, more common in last trimester, perhaps owing to stretched peritoneum. Okay, now what all we will think that this is appendicitis. Urine analysis may reveal leukocytes if the appendiceal inflammation is in contact with the bladder. Okay, this is good point. Biochemical test may reveal evidence of inflammation. This is second thing, WBC count and all we see, no? We do complete blood count if we suspect appendicitis. Now, ultrasound may show a thickened appendix with surrounding fluid that would suggest appendicitis. However, this is operator dependent with overall sensitivity 60 to 70% and specificity is 80 to 95%. What is the meaning of specificity and sensitivity?
Sensitivity is the test which tell us true positive.
True positive. And
And
specificity
specificity when the test shows true negative.
Very good. In very, very simple language, sensitivity means presence of certain condition. That is sensitivity. Specificity is non-presence of that condition. If what I am thinking is correct. Sensitivity means 60% possibility is there, appendix could be there when ultrasound is telling it is there. When ultrasound is telling 83 to 96% means if it did not found there is appendicitis, the inflamed appendix and all means it is specific, yes, possibility it may not be there. Okay. So sensitivity, as you said, true positive, specificity is true negative. When there is continuing clinical, and so what you will see, the outcome of this line that ultrasound in diagnosing appendicitis or excluding it, it is more specific other than more sensitive.
It is more specific
Yes, madam.
to explode the disease.
If there is no symptoms and ultrasound shows there is nothing, so it means it's more specific.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, when there is continuing clinical uncertainty, means clinically we are not able to come to conclusion, and when imaging is thought to still be of value, MRI can be used safely if rapidly accessible. We said the problem with MRI is availability and expertise. Okay, so if still clinical uncertainty, we did everything, but we are not able to find it out, still if that thing is there, MRI, if it is safely, it can be used if it is easily available. Why? It will be sensitivity is 91% and specificity is 98%. Nothing will tell us 100% unless we open and see only. So 91% and 98%. Okay. After that, a diagnostic, suppose if nothing is available, what we will do? Suppose nothing, we are not able to do anything, we are not able to still confirm it, and still patient is in pain, and still we are suspecting.
Laparoscopy,
Surgery, laparoscopy.
Excellent. Diagnostic laparoscopy may be required if there is continued uncertainty in diagnosis or delay in access to MRI. Okay, because acute abdomen, we cannot leave her just like that only. Now, appendicitis is a surgical condition requiring surgery. This may be conducted as an open or laparoscopic procedure dependent on the severity of presentation, expertise available, and gestational age. Appendicitis is a progressive disease with early diagnosis and treatment preventing appendiceal perforation and localized or generalized peritonitis caused by purulent or fecal contamination. For chronic appendicitis or appendiceal masses in non-pregnant patient, conservative management with intravenous antibiotic. This is not our topic of discussion now, for now. So mostly when it presented as an acute abdomen, it is a surgical condition which will require surgery, conducted either an open or laparoscopic procedure depending on what severity of the patient, how fast the intervention is needed, available of expertise, available of resources, and gestational age. Up to what gestational age we can do laparoscopy?
20 weeks?
28 weeks.
28 weeks.
Yes, 28 weeks also nowadays they're telling. Okay, now we came to the second thing, biliary colic or cholecystitis. What type of pain we said there in cholecystitis?
Colicky.
Colicky. Yeah, so some refresh means it's still things are still there. Physiological changes in pregnancy like cholesterol secretion, supersaturation of bile can predispose to gallstone formation, which in turn predisposes women to biliary colic and cholecystitis. Cholecystitis is the second most common abdominal surgical pathology in pregnancy and 1 to 6 cases in 1,000 pregnancies. What was the percentage of appendicitis?
1 in 800.
1 in 800 to
1 in 800.
Okay, good. Over 90% of cases are associated with gallstone disease. During later stage of pregnancy, when the appendix is displaced by gravid uterus, the clinical history of acute, I'm very sorry, actually for me, usually if you have seen all my slides, I don't write all these details and all. Mostly I try to do some graphical representation and charts and all, but here, all this information is important. That's why I cannot make everything very small. That's why you will see a little bit more here. During later stage of pregnancy, when appendix is displaced by gravid uterus, the clinical history of acute appendicitis and biliary colic progressing to cholecystitis can be very similar. So as we said earlier, it can be in right hypochondrium. Okay. Again, our biochemical test may reveal evidence of inflammation. Liver function tests are essential to determine whether there is an obstructive jaundice picture. LFTs will be done. This may indicate an obstructing common bile duct stone warranting further investigation and treatment. So what we will do, we will try to do biochemical tests to see if the inflammation, liver function test to exclude the any evidence of obstructive jaundice. Now, trans-abdominal ultrasound is the initial imaging investigation of choice for biliary colic and cholecystitis, with more than 95% sensitivity for detecting gallstones. So it was, what was the percentage in appendicitis?
60%.
60%. Sensitivity was 60% there, but it became 95%. From down, when we are reaching up, we were 60% in right iliac fossa. We climbed 3 compartments up, we became 30% more. So it became 95% for gallstone. Ultrasound also is very clever. Now, where liver function test and ultrasound suggest that a common bile duct stone is causing obstruction, the British Society of Gastroenterology recommends proceeding to endoscopic retrograde cholangiopancreatography for confirmation of diagnosis and removal. So ERCP. When ultrasound and our liver test, all when it suggested that there is, yes, obstruction with a stone. So ERCP for 2 things, for confirmation also, for diagnosis and for removal also. Okay, clear here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. Now we are coming to the same still. Biliary colic can be managed with adequate analgesia and antiemetics because we are dealing with upper abdomen. So there can be possibility of vomiting and all. It will be there, no? Even with the lower thing also, even with appendicitis also vomiting. So adequate analgesia, antiemetics, following resolution of acute episode. We were talking initially with what? With stones. Now we are talking about colic. It can be managed with analgesia, antiemetics, following resolution of acute episode. Definitive laparoscopic cholecystectomy is subsequently required. So initial management of acute cholecystitis involves what? Fluid resuscitation, analgesia, nil by mouth, and intravenous antibiotics. This is initial, when any patient presented with biliary colic. Urgent surgical intervention is only required if the disease progresses with perforation and subsequent focal or generalized peritonitis. Gallstone disease has been shown to increase the risk of maternal readmission by 4 to 7 times, 4.7 times, 4 to 5 times means, with surgery reducing the risk to 0.4 times greater than those without gallstone disease during pregnancy. Okay, this is something not very, very important to memorize. Okay, so this was our biliary colic and cholecystitis. Okay, any confusion so far?
No, ma'am.
Okay, now we are coming to the very, very important point again, which is bowel obstruction. See, first we were 1 in 100, then we went to 1 in 1000. Now we are coming to 1 in 1500. So bowel obstruction, approximately 1 in 1500 statistics. Why bowel obstruction is increasing incidence overall? Why?
Because in pregnancy, the
Ma'am,
bowel
because of
mobility is sluggish.
IVF pregnancy.
ma'am, because of the
Spaces in
increase,
pregnancy because of progesterone.
ma'am, because of the increased rate of operations, adhesions formation. So
Excellent. Progesterone will that much, it will relax the bowel to cause up to obstruction?
No.
no, ma'am.
No.
It will
Yeah.
It only
slow
causes
the bowel.
constipation.
Yes, constipation it will cause. So the increased overall incidence is predominantly attributed to adhesions, adhesional obstruction following previous abdominal surgery. Then what is the other point? Bowel displacement and distortion secondary to gravid uterus may also predispose to twisting of bowel lobes causing partial or complete obstruction. It also has role. Then colonic pseudo obstruction. What is the name of this colonic pseudo obstruction? There is one
Ugly
complete.
syndrome.
Yeah. And what is the most specific time when it happens?
Second trimester.
Huh?
Post-operative.
OCS.
Mostly post CS. Yes. Mostly it is post CS, and it is mainly like colonic. There is one complete talk article and there is recall also with this. So please go through it. There is the cecum when you do X-ray and all. What will be the what is that measurement? Yes, what and management? First line, second line, third line. According to that measurement, there when you do an X-ray and CT scan. So please go through that, huh? Then biochemical tests may be used to diagnose any electrolyte imbalance or renal impairment secondary to hypovolemic shock caused by third space losses. Because directly bowel obstruction will not do any changes on renal, it will not do. But because of that, when patient will go into shock, there will be third space fluid collection, no? That will change the biochemical parameters and all. So in that way, renal function test and electrolyte imbalance to be checked with biochemical test. Now, for this thing, bowel obstruction, abdominal X-ray is avoided because of potential harm to the fetus, that we said already. Ultrasound and MRI are considered safe. Initial treatment, again, IV fluid, NG tube insertion, nil by mouth. This may be refined based on underlying etiology with senior surgeon direction. Large or small bowel obstruction may be complicated by ischemia and perforation, with the risk increase depending on underlying etiology and delay in the treatment. What will be the factors? What was the reason? What was the cause of main factor because of this obstruction happened? Depending on that and how long we delay to do the intervention. So these all things can cause complication. What are the complications? Bowel may landed up with ischemia or perforate. Okay, now.
The most complication many times is coming that the patient is presented with the abdominal distension and you're suspecting intestinal obstruction. You will call surgeon or you will attend the patient.
Yes.
So always this is controversial.
Exactly. Exactly. And especially in some hospitals, surgeon will say, first you exclude any obstetrical cause. We will say to the surgeon, first you exclude any surgical cause. That dilemma continues many times. It does happen everywhere, my dear. We have seen one patient, she had presented with acute abdomen. Later on, retrospectively, when we investigate the history and all, she was for how many days with severe constipation and all. Now, finally, when patient is collapsing and all, emergency cesarean was done. She was, I think, 32 weeks, something exactly gestation age, I don't remember, but viability was there only. The minute abdomen was open, how it was pouring all stool. That much severe peritonitis with a stool, because the severe constipation for how many days, there was obstruction. Finally, it was perforated bowel. Finally, alhamdulillah, she recovered after a long time. But that was the case, which we have seen one. Okay, so MDT, early senior surgeon involvement is recommended. Okay, see, all these things, we are not the one, they are not expecting us to manage. Bowel obstruction, cholecystitis, appendicitis, they are not expecting us to manage, but our approach and to guide, to involve the people, that at least in exam, that answer will be expected from us. Now, we said this already, that was our bowel obstruction. Okay, once we involve the senior surgeon and all, further is it is their part. They are not expecting us to talk about all colostomy and all. Now, pancreatitis. We said, someone said about amylase and all, no, there we will see here now. Now, rare event in pancreatitis, it is a rare event in pregnant patient occurring 3 in 10,000. Now, someone will tell me about appendicitis, cholecystitis, and bowel obstruction.
1 in 800
Appendicitis
appendicitis.
is 1 into 800 to 1 into 1500.
And then cholecystitis 1 in 1000. And then bowel obstruction 1 in 1500. And then pancreatitis 3 in 10,000.
3 in 10,000. Very good. It is
1 in 100, 1 in 1000, 1 in 15, 3 in 10,000.
Good, good, good. It is most commonly associated with biliary disease, with 70% of cases being a direct result of gallstone passing through obstructing biliary tree. This is the pathology what they have given with that. Initial treatment again include what? Stabilizing, first diagnosis, second, then determining the severity, resuscitation, and disease-specific therapy, such as ERCP for extraction of common bile duct stone. If it was there already, as they said that it can be 70%, only that could be the reason for pancreatitis, if that is there. Okay. Now, specifically, liver function test may reveal an obstructive pathology caused by gallstone when we do biochemical test there. Serum amylase levels of more than 3 times the upper limit of normal may be diagnostic. Serum amylase level more than 3 times of upper limit of normal may be diagnostic. There is one more value. When it comes more than 3 times, we say that it may be diagnostic of so and so condition. What is that?
Acute fatty liver.
So what will be that?
Acute fatty liver of pregnancies is also raised.
There will be serum amylase?
Yes.
What else? What about alkaline phosphatase? When it is more than 3 times, suggestive of what?
Obstetric cholestasis.
Cholestasis, if it is more than 3 times. Now, however, pancreatitis may exist with lower levels of amylase also, because during a prolonged history, the amylase concentration may have been normalized already. So, it can be already, if as long as pancreatitis, there will be high serum amylase, but which is normal will not exclude that there cannot be pancreatitis. This is the meaning of this sentence. Serum lipase is more sensitive and specific than amylase for diagnosis of acute pancreatitis. Someone said that time lipase, no? Earlier someone said about lipase.
I'll say it, ma'am.
Yeah,
Lipase.
so lipase is more sensitive and specific than amylase for diagnosis of acute pancreatitis. So if question comes, if there is amylase, if there is lipase is given, and if they want more specific marker, more sensitive and specific marker of acute pancreatitis, our answer will be serum lipase. Lipase, PL, LP, LMNOP. No, not matching. Leave it. Somewhere near to P is what? L. So think like that, because in exam, definitely it will become nightmare. It was lipase or it was amylase. It was lipase or it was amylase. Think A is very far from P. L is near to P. So lipase with pancreatitis. We have to go back to KG now. Okay. Again.
No, or P for lipase and P for pancreatitis.
A good combination also, yes.
Because amylase is not much specific. We have this oral amylase too. So therefore lipase is only specific for pancreatitis. So we can remember like this.
Yes, yeah, that is also. Whatever method you want to remember, but it has to be there in our brain. Now, early senior surgery input is required if pancreatitis is suspected. Severe acute pancreatitis is most appropriately managed in a unit with specialist expertise available, because complication may produce multi-organ dysfunction requiring intensive support measures. So it can be catastrophic if complication happens of pancreatitis. So senior expertise.
The gastroenterologist.
Sorry?
Senior gastroenterologist.
Yes, senior gastroenterologist will be there. Yes. Now we have, our very all-time favorite ureteric, not obstruction, but UTI. So obstruction and ureteric obstruction and pyelonephritis. So the most important in history, if there is any history of renal calculi. If already there, no, when patient comes, if said no, previously also it was said to me that I have some renal stones, and also we feel there could be obstruction, pyelonephritis, like that. Complication of ureteric obstruction include what? Hydronephrosis and pyelonephritis. Mild renal hydronephrosis is considered normal in pregnancy up to a pelvic-calyceal diameter of 5 millimeter on left and 15 millimeter on right. And dilatation of ureters up to 2 centimeter in the 3rd trimester. Okay. So these are 3 readings here. What will be considered normal in pregnancy? Pelvic-calyceal dilatation up to 5 millimeter on right side. On left side, 15 millimeter on right side, and ureter dilatation up to 2 centimeter. Why it is 15 on the right and 5 on left?
Dextro-rotated uterus.
Thank you.
Dextro-rotation of uterus.
Flank or back pain may be reported with associated features of sepsis. All together will be there. Urine analysis may show leukocytosis or microscopic hematuria. Biochemical tests may reveal evidence of sepsis or renal impairment. This all already we said already what will be the sepsis and renal impairment things. Now, how to manage? Ultrasound and MRI are considered safe to inform the diagnosis and underlying etiology. Pyelonephritis in pregnancy should be admitted for intravenous antibiotic and fluid therapy. This will be conservative only, mostly. Surgery may be indicated for whom? For those who deteriorate despite treatment or who are very unwell with abscess, with emphysematous pyelonephritis or an obstructing calculus. All these are the cases where surgery will be indicated. Otherwise, it will be conservative management with IV fluid therapy and antibiotic. Ureteric obstruction may require decompression. This can be carried out endoscopically with stenting. This we see for many patients via percutaneous nephrostomy. If ureteric obstruction is considered, early senior urology consultation involvement is essential to guide initial and continuing management. Whatever the system we are dealing, that consultant involvement will be important. Just to keep that in mind. Now, this is our aneurysm. What we were talking initially, what we have seen in that chart. Rupture of visceral artery aneurysm, although rare, the risk of abdominal aneurysm rupture or dissection is significantly increased in pregnancy. The priority of initial management is diagnosis and balanced or minimum risk, or at least minimum resuscitation to be done to achieve permissive hypotension, because volume replacement can increase bleeding. Okay, here now we are suspecting any case that there is ruptured aneurysm and there is hypovolemia shock. When we are we are doing resuscitation, when we are overloading with fluid, what can happen?
Pulmonary edema.
What else? There is aneurysm has ruptured and it is bleeding.
Shock.
A patient is in shock.
Bleeding
It
would
will
more
worsen
become worse.
the condition.
It will worsen the condition. Very good, because already it has ruptured. That is a channel of vessels, no?
Yes,
So when you are overloading with the fluid, that fluid is going out from somewhere inside. So whatever has happened, it is worsening the condition. So we have to balance this thing while managing. While we are initial resuscitation we are doing, this thing has to be balanced, that we should not complicate the condition more. Or if there is any clot and all, it may get dislodged with that, like that. So prompt consultation and assessment by senior vascular surgeon. Whatever system we are dealing, that consultant. So senior vascular surgeon is required to direct management and to conserve the window of opportunity for successful emergency repair. Because it will need repair only, there is no other way. Open repair is preferable to avoid the radiation exposure associated with endovascular repair. Half of all arterial aneurysm rupture in women of childbearing age are associated with pregnancy. Whatever aneurysm rupture happen, arterial aneurysm in women, half of them are associated in pregnancy. Now here is what we have seen in that chart. Splenic artery aneurysm is the most common type of visceral artery aneurysm, with up to 95% of cases presenting during pregnancy and being associated with very high maternal and fetal mortality.
Madam, can you please explain that resuscitation point? Actually, there was some
What
internet
happens?
disruption.
Yeah, it is ruptured any visceral artery aneurysm. One vessel has ruptured already and it is bleeding now inside. If patient is in shock, when we do resuscitation and the shock, what we do fluid overload, no? To overcome that shock.
Yes, madam.
Okay, now one channel is there which is interconnected. There is some, like we will think our pipeline. In our kitchen, one pipeline is going from here and there everywhere. One pipe is broken. Once the water comes from the tank up, and if your faucet is already open to complete this pipeline which is interconnected, but if suppose one pipe is broken, the all water will go out on the floor. You got my point? This
Yes,
is I'm
madam,
trying
yes,
one simple example.
Yes,
so same
madam.
thing.
Yes, very
same
nice.
thing.
Very nicely explained. Thank you.
Same thing inside also, we have one vascular channel which is interconnected. Now it got disrupted somewhere, it is already ruptured and it is bleeding inside. So to overcome the shock, when we resuscitate, if we overdo the things, if we overdo hydration and all, again it will worsen the condition. So that has to be balanced. And that balance and all, early senior involvement, multidisciplinary team and all, like that.
Okay, madam.
Okay.
Thank you.
God bless you, my dear. So in this, we have the most common thing is, not common, it is a rare thing, but it can happen, which is splenic artery aneurysm. And it is the most common type of visceral artery aneurysm, which can present during pregnancy up to how much? Up to 95% of the cases. That will be splenic artery aneurysm. And it is associated with high maternal and fetal mortality. Okay, again, we came back on our very, very first slide, which I had presented in my very initial presentation, initial lecture. Which step have you reached today? Okay, now the thing is, supposed to be, there should be some questions and answers, SBS, EMQs, whatever is there, which I could not collect today, but I will post in group. Whoever finds any question related to this topic, any doubt which was not cleared now, you people can post in the group. Whenever I see it, I will try my best to answer. Okay? And if anyone has not any immediate question to ask, I would like to thank you all, and I'm happy to see you all again. And I will be happy and feel hopefully, very much hopeful that we will continue whatever the activity in this group. And we will meet again soon, because our one more now lecture is there, but that will be, I'm very sorry, it will be continued in that already, which is the other group, which is already paid group, which is continuing. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you,
God
madam.
bless you. God bless. God bless. Again,
Thank you
we
so
will.
much.
So nice of you, Dr. Famida. Thank you so much.
God bless. God bless, my dear. Thank you so much to all of you. And again, soon there will be some announcement about our next lecture. Okay. So we will have 10 minutes break. Munib. Munib.
Next lecture is by.
Hello. Yes, my dear.
Topics of next lecture, ma'am.
Polyhydramnios. We will swim.
And we have today.
Yes.
Polyhydramnios.
Yes. Okay then. See you there. Give me 10 minutes break. I think Munib is somewhere busy. 10 minutes and we will join again. Huh?
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Another link?
Jagruti?
Yes, ma'am. Will there be another link? This link?
Yeah. There will be link. Yeah, that's what I was looking for Munib. Maybe he's busy. Yeah, Munib is there only. He will post that link. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you. See you all there. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye. Allah Hafiz. Bye.